Welcome back to another explainer. So, every single night when you close your eyes, something totally extraordinary happens. I mean, your body just lies there, completely motionless, but your mind, it embarks on these wild journeys that can literally defy the laws of physics. Today, we're going to dive into a truly mind-bending question. Could those nighttime dreams actually be windows into parallel universes? We're going to explore this whole concept by looking at some pretty radical quantum theories, and then we'll bring it all back down to earth with mainstream neuroscience to see what's actually going on in our sleeping brains.
Okay, let's take a quick look at our roadmap. We'll start with dreams as quantum portals, check out the many worlds interpretation, dive into multiversal consciousness theory, explore chaos and alternate counterparts, touch on the philosophy of realities, and then wrap the whole thing up with a much-needed scientific reality check. Let's get into it. Section 1, Dreams as Quantum Portals. We're kicking this explainer off with a deeply human experience that honestly sometimes borders on the supernatural. Seriously, think about it. Have you ever had one of those incredibly vivid recurring dreams where you make entirely different life choices? You know, the dreams where the emotional intensity just totally sticks with you long after you've woken up and made your morning coffee? Well, some researchers who explore the very bleeding edge where quantum physics meets human consciousness are suggesting these might not just be random neural firings. They propose this wild idea that these dreams could be actual literal glimpses into alternate timelines. And that brings us to this concept of quantum dreaming. The basic hypothesis here is that during your normal waking life, your consciousness is strictly local, right? It's tethered by your five senses. But as those sensory boundaries dissolve when you fall asleep, your mind might shift into what's called a non-local state. In this totally expanded awareness, the theory suggests you might actually be able to tunnel across the quantum multiverse, essentially syncing up with alternate versions of yourself through quantum entanglement. Section 2, the many worlds interpretation. Now, to even begin to understand how this could be theoretically possible, we've got to look at one of the most hotly debated ideas in modern physics. You might already be familiar with this one. Back in 1957, American physicist Hugh Everett proposed the many worlds interpretation, or MWI. Basically, it suggests that the universe literally branches every single time a quantum choice is made. So if an electron can go left or right, it actually does both, just in completely different, newly created parallel realities. If that's true, it means there are infinite alternate realities playing out simultaneously right at this very second. This sets up a completely fascinating thought experiment from Dr. Patrick McNamara. He suggests that if the many worlds interpretation is correct, our counterfactual dreams, those dreams of what might have been, could actually be the real lived experiences of our counterparts in those branching worlds. When you dream of an alternate life, you're not just making things up. You might simply be perceiving the reality of a daughter world that branched off from your own timeline. Moving right along to Section 3, Multiversal Consciousness Theory. This is where it gets really interesting because some researchers are actually trying to put mathematical frameworks behind what sounds like pure science fiction. Enter the Multiversal Consciousness Theory, or MCT for short. This theory tries to tackle the infamous hard problem of consciousness. You know, that massive mystery of how squishy physical brain matter somehow creates our rich, subjective inner experiences. MCT says, hey, what if consciousness isn't just a byproduct computed by the brain? What if it's a fundamental property of the universe itself, intrinsically tied to quantum mechanics? According to the core hypothesis of this framework, our consciousness essentially couples with a universal field. When we're awake, our sensory inputs act like a massive filter on our reality. But during sleep, this cortical filtering gets turned way down, allegedly allowing our consciousness to resonate with and actually access states from parallel universes. And they've built an actual equation for this. Accessing these universes supposedly requires a very specific recipe. You need a certain duration of REM sleep, a baseline level of consciousness, and stochastic quantum noise. But here is the absolute wildest claim. They propose that our DNA physically acts as a quantum antenna. Yeah, you heard that right. They argue that our DNA resonates at frequencies of 1 to 10 terahertz, literally tuning into different parallel realities like some sort of biological radio receiver. To back up this equation, the MCT authors actually created a machine learning model. It predicts parallel universe access based on an animal's sleep patterns and brain size. And because REM sleep is the strongest factor in their model, they came to the shocking conclusion that cats have the highest parallel universe access of any animal, over 50%. So yes, your cat napping on the couch might literally be traversing the multiverse. Meanwhile, animals that don't have traditional REM sleep, like dolphins, who sleep with half their brain awake, or giraffes, they have minimal access. They even point to empirical terahertz spectroscopy measurements to try and prove this. They highlight data showing that mutated tumor DNA exhibits a measurable frequency blue shift of 0.5 terahertz. For the MCT proponents, this is the smoking gun, that DNA residence is real, measurable, and biologically relevant, acting exactly like that tunable antenna they hypothesized. Section 4. Chaos and alternate counterparts. Beyond just universal equations, other researchers are looking closely at the actual physical structure of our dreaming brains to explain all of this. From a complexity theory standpoint, the dreaming brain is a highly nonlinear system. Some theorists suggest that those rapid, repetitive eye movements during REM sleep usher the brain into a state of chaos. Now, in physics, chaos can actually lead to spontaneous self-organization. The idea here is that this chaotic state creates hyperdimensional geometric structures within the brain's neural networks, and these structures are supposedly what allow our consciousness to bridge the gap and sync up with those alternate counterparts. So the juxtaposition here is absolutely crucial. Think about it like this. Let's say you have that super stressful dream where you're suddenly back in high school taking a math test you haven't studied for, even though you graduated a decade ago. Traditional psychology says, oh, that's just your subconscious processing unresolved feelings or old anxieties. But quantum dreaming theory says something entirely completely different. It suggests you are feeling the literal, present-day anxiety of a parallel you who never actually graduated, and that distress is being transmitted across dimensional boundaries via quantum entanglement. Crazy, right? Section 5. The philosophy of realities. Let's just step back from the heavy quantum equations and neural clicks for a second and look at this through a purely philosophical lens. This brings us to a concept called modal realism, championed by philosopher David Lewis back in 1986. Lewis made this incredibly bold argument: every possible way a world could be actually exists in reality somewhere. Under modal realism, the ultimate litmus test for a universe is just whether it can be imagined without a logical contradiction. Basically, if you can physically imagine it, it exists. Therefore, these coherent, complex worlds we effortlessly build every night in our sleep, they could be literal glimpses into perfectly valid existing universes. Okay, Section 6, the scientific reality check. Because while those what-if theories are undeniably captivating, we absolutely have to ground this explainer in the mainstream scientific consensus of today. When we put these two paradigms side by side, the contrast is, well, it's pretty stark. Quantum dream theory relies heavily on microtubules, DNA acting as antennas, and quantum tunneling, but mainstream neuroscience pushes back hard. It maintains that the bizarre, vivid nature of our dreams is simply the result of the brain's spontaneous network activations. During REM sleep, your hippocampus and cortical networks are just creatively mashing up memory fragments and emotions. It naturally defies waking logic. It is an entirely internal construction, not an external journey across the cosmos. Professor Hussein Alatatis, an expert in theoretical physics, really firmly clarifies this boundary. He points out that while modern cosmology absolutely does explore the multiverse, and yes, quantum mechanics definitely has its many worlds interpretation, making the leap to say that human dreams access these worlds is purely philosophical speculation. Right now, there isn't a single shred of direct observational evidence, or any accepted physical theory, that links the brain activity of a sleeping person to parallel dimensions. So ultimately, the scientific consensus is incredibly clear. Your brain is a brilliant, phenomenally complex system made up of billions of interconnected neurons. The dreams you experience are the result of highly complex biological interactions. It's an internal construction of your own mind, creatively integrating your life experiences, completely and utterly independent of other dimensions. But as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this one provocative thought. Even if we strip away all the quantum tunneling and the multiverse antennas, isn't the sheer biological capacity of your own mind to invent an entire, functioning universe from scratch every single time you close your eyes almost as magical as the multiverse itself? Something to think about tonight. Thanks so much for exploring with us, and we'll catch you in the next one.